throughout 2020, the man who talked about football, that is the round ball code, the man from FNR, Athos Sirianos, was tremendous. He took us through the entire season and gave us the world game from just about every jurisdiction where the game is played. Well, 2021 is upon us, a brand new season, a brand new year. Many of the international tournaments are up and running and their competitions are halfway through their season, or no, actually they're not even that far gone. There are probably 15 games. Athos joins us in the studio once again to pick up where we are with the World Game. Should we start in Australia, where over the Christmas New Year break, we've heard that the AAFC, that is the second tier of football clubs in Australia and lower, have put their hand up and they say they reckon they can get a second division up by next year. What do you make of it?
Well, Australia does seem to be the place to be at the moment, so it's only natural that we start there. Just on this AAFC, they released a report on Monday with a few recommendations and proposals to Football Australia as to how this second division can look. Now, we've seen reports come and go, and it's the same old responses that yes, we're ready to go, we can do this, and we're not sure how it will work. Well, for the first time, George, we're actually seeing numbers on the page. We're talking figures as to how much it'll cost to run the league, how much money clubs will need to have in the bank, how many flights there will be between the 12 clubs if it is the case.
And you had a chance to talk to the head honcho at the AAFC on FNR. What did you make of that interview? What did you got into the nitty gritty? Does he sound like everything's plausible and is within the realm of all those clubs that have put their hand up and say we want to be part of it?
Well, there are 32 clubs who, alongside the AAFC, put this report together. What I got out of it was real concrete answers. For the first time, the AAFC has given proposals that are quite firm and say, yes, this is how we want it to look like, and FFA, of course, will have that final say and make the call as to who goes in and how the competition will look like. One of the things that I found interesting was the AAFC were quite firm in its recommendation of the competition running as a single league rather than conferences. Which has been brought up a few times.
Well, that's normally been brought up by clubs saying we're going to have to bear enormous travel costs, and that's why we saw the conference model offered up. But they're saying no, we can do it almost as a second national tier, and it'll be at initially 16 clubs. Is that your understanding?
So the first season will have 12 clubs, with then each season introducing a new teams until we get to 16, and then from there we will have promotion and relegation with the 8 NPL conferences. That is what is being proposed. Nothing's concrete. Football Australia might turn the whole page upside down. And
they've got to have W League attached to them or else.
Yeah, well,
that's another thing.
The women's aspect is another interesting subplot to this. The report proposed to have a women's second division up and running by 2025, because arguably the gap between the NPLW to the women's league is a lot smaller than NPL to the A League. We're seeing in the W League, Catherine Zimmerman from Melbourne Victory is performing superbly, and she has something like 70 goals from 50 games for Calder United in the NPL. So that gap is a lot smaller than...
Well, it makes sense because the W League has only been around for that long. So only a few years ago, they were all playing at that second or that other tier. Now we have an elite tier, and I think, as you say, that gap is not as great as the A-League, which has had 15, 16 years.
Not only that, a lot with the players that don't go off to Europe and to America, there's a lot of them that go back to the NPLW. So you're getting a whole bunch of W League quality players in the NPLW. Ella Mastrantonia was one of them, the Western Sydney Wanderers midfielder. She went to Apia and before her season started was approached by Bristol City over in the UK, the Women's Super League side. So the quality isn't that far off the W League because there's so many great players that have nowhere to go by the end of the 15 W League rounds.
They've got to go somewhere because the 2023 is going to see a World Cup come down under to Australia and New Zealand.
Not only that, there's an Olympic Games, there's an Asian Cup, there's so much to look forward to.
We're keeping our fingers crossed for the Olympics though. All right, now, so much more has been happening. The consensus is one thing. What do you make of it? You've been watching with real interest. You've read most of the paperwork. You've worked your way around it. Are you now more confident than ever before that we are closer?
Well, I'm confident because we're seeing numbers on the page,
Okay.
but again, a big hurdle is the travel costs and how they will go around this. So, for an example, if there is a team in Perth, you'd expect their travel costs would be greater than a Melbourne or a
Correct.
Sydney. So it comes down to whether this will be on the onus of the clubs or whether the governing body will help out in this space. And because we're a country the size of Australia, travel cost is a real big issue, and because we don't have that population to have a East and West conference like they do in the US,
Touche.
there's a lot to work out.
All right, the season is underway. What have you made thus far?
Well, one of the...
It's early days.
Well, the biggest narrative I think we brought into the season was this drive of the youth and that it's their time to shine, and we've seen a lot of new coaches and with that new players, and I think that has been a strong correlation. Guys like Carl Viet and Warren Moon, who are very, very young in their coaching careers, have looked to blood players very early in their playing career, and we've seen it. It's been tremendous seeing so many young players take the game on and have a real impact.
And we've also seen some of those young stars from some of the established clubs like City and Victory and others go out on loan and play for clubs like Newcastle, Macarthur, and also at Central Coast Mariners. And we're seeing some sparkling football, whether it's Rami Rajareen, Dennis Jean Rowe, who we know, and a crop of others. And Melbourne City even flashed a couple of young boys, young Marco Tilio from Sydney FC rather, and we also saw young Kolakowski come on and make an impact.
And I think with that, you're seeing that they provide that spark that allow teams to have that X factor and go for the game. I don't think we've seen a case this season where an A-League side has looked to hold on for a draw or maybe accept defeat. Every team has gone out with the intention to win. We know the A-League the football is one of transition, so it's back and forth. That's the style that we play here. It's a very fast game, but this season we've turned it up to 12. All teams are going out to score and going out to win, which I think is why we're seeing such entertaining games.
Can't be saying the same thing though in the EPL, can we? The only exciting thing is if you're a Manchester United supporter, and we know someone very close to us who is off the charts doing cartwheels at the moment, because lo and behold, despite all the pundits saying the exact opposite, Manchester United are at the top of the EPL.
Well, it's a bit of...
Go figure.
There is a bit of Stephen Bradbury to it because Liverpool has just fallen off.
You're implying that Liverpool and Manchester City have actually dropped from their super high standards, and suddenly these clubs on the periphery have decided to step up.
Liverpool definitely. I think they're just knackered, to be honest. They're playing that many competitions. They're not fit. The turnaround between last season to this season wasn't all that great. So you can almost excuse them for dropping off the pace. Manchester City is a team riddled by injuries, but they're coming up. They've got a great deal of depth, still a few games in hand.
Yep.
So they're one of the big rivals for the title.
How many games in hand do you think Frank Lampard has as the coach of Chelsea?
Well,
his club has, from the beginning of the season where they started so well, they've just continued to go downhill. Can he hold on, or is Roman Abramovich going to pull the pin and say, enough?
Well, his owner is one who has traditionally not been very forgiving with his managers, but I think there are...
Short fuse.
I think there are two factors in play here. One being that Frank is a club legend.
Yes.
So he will have a bit more leeway. And the second, I think, what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has achieved at Manchester United has to be considered. He is someone who has been on the chopping block really almost since day one, aside from the first few weeks where he had revived them and they gave him the job. He has been on the chopping block for 80% of his time there, and he's got them to the top. So maybe Chelsea can look on that and say, we need to give Frank a bit of time, see what he can do with these players, and he might be able to deliver something. I just realised
you're an optimist. Okay, let's talk about Serie A. AC Milan at the top of the tree. Can they stay there, or is Inter just nipping away at their heels?
Well, traditionally it's been Inter who have fallen off the pace this time of year, and Milan have only lost, I think, one game in their last 30 in all competitions. They're hungry for a title. They've got the 40-year-old Zlatan back from injury, and he scored a brace the other morning.
He's not 40, really. I think he tells people he's 40.
I think
he's maybe about 33.
39, I think. He's getting close there, but if he's fit, they're going to be even harder to stop.
Yeah, he's an amazing presence. Juventus finished for the season, do you think? or they've got something in them? Can Perlo sort of, prompt them and to get them over the line?
Well, you can never count them out of the title race. They won the Super Cup this week against Napoli, so he will finish the year with some silverware, albeit whether it's the Scudetto or the Coppa Italia or even the Champions League certainly remains to be seen.
All right, last question for you, just before we wrap it up. Believe it or not, I know it's a shock, but Lionel Messi has been sent off for the first time in his career. Did you ever imagine you were going to see it?
No, he has been, convicted of criminal charges and has had 3 kids before
but never got a red card
before he got a red card, which was extraordinary.
Wow. Okay, what's next? What do you expect next for the new season of 21? What's the most exciting thing you're looking forward to? Can your Hammers bounce back and get a win? Or are we going to see Manchester United just continue to leave the others in their wake?
Well, considering we all thought we were entering a Liverpool dynasty, I think it's almost refreshing seeing a few more sides, including Leicester, doing quite well.
Oh, Alex Kayafa will not be able to contain himself. Athos Sirianos, as always, thank you for helping us. If you want to know more about the World Game, why don't you catch up with Athos Sirianos and Ed every morning on FNR Football Nation Radio. Make sure you download the app.